Welcome everyone to the Sidelines Hitting the Hardcourt podcast. I'm your host. This is Josh, and coming to the show today, Jason out of God knows where, loving Oklahoma City still.
Of course.
It's not a bad team to like there, man. I mean, we got Russell Westbrook, who's been snubbed again out of the All-Star voting lineup, and it just seems like there's someone every year that just gets the shaft, huh?
He'll get into the he'll become a reserve, but he deserves a start. And the funny part about it is that he already plays with a chip on his shoulder, but this is like Lillard from last year. I think the second half he's going to make teams pay.
Well, let's hope that he does better with the Thunder than Lillard did with Portland, what they did on when they went on that decent run and got kicked out early. We're just gonna go ahead and jump right into it. We're gonna talk a little bit today. We're gonna start off talking about one of the biggest stories today. We're just gonna talk about this Carmelo Anthony trade to start out with, and the statement of stay mellow has not been a very trending topic around the Knicks camp as of late, especially between Phil Jackson and Carmelo Anthony. Rumors had that the Knicks were seeking a 1-to-1 trade between the Knicks and the Cavaliers' love for Carmelo. So let's start out with that. Jason, tell me your thoughts on that.
I kind of reacted quickly to that when I seen it yesterday, and I tweeted out that trading Melo for Love, you're not, the Cavs don't get better because you're trading one guy who refuses to play defense for another guy who refuses to play defense. And I mean, if you look at it, Melo and Love are two of the same exact guys. They both love to shoot threes. They won't play defense. The only difference between Love and Melo, Love will get you at least 11 to 12 boards a night. Other than that, what do you really need him for?
I mean, this is true. I mean, you're talking about a guy in Kevin Love that used to be Mr. Double Double, as they referred him to, when he went on that really awesome streak of points and boards when he played for Minnesota. God knows what happened to that man. And then you're talking about trading him for Carmelo Anthony, who seems to be in a real live pickle. On one hand, he is the all-star of the team, and as he has stated so many times before, we can get into this quote at another time, but when the Knicks win, it's a team win. When they lose, it's his fault, and he feels like he's you know I mean, he's kind of given this team a little bit more effort as of late, especially with Phil Jackson coming on board. I remember initially he was excited about the signing and he was ready to buy into whatever Phil Jackson was giving out. And then now it seems to be the complete opposite, where all the pieces that were put together on the team. I mean, I know that the Knicks had all this cap space and they were looking to try to acquire LeBron James and Dwayne Wade when they were free agents and have them both sign over in New York. And when that fell through, the additions of Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah, along with the already great performance from his rookie year from Kristaps Porzingis, you would think that Carmelo Anthony had enough decent pieces to keep the Knicks out of the basement. But now that just doesn't seem to be the case. And even more so, talking about quotes, LeBron James was quoted. He stated that they need a insert expletive comment playmaker. And for the most part, before we get into the Cavs side of this, I think that what they were talking about is they need someone that's available to make plays down the stretch. They need J.R. Smith back. And so if you look at Carmelo Anthony, do you think that he's that playmaker? I mean, is that really one-to-one, or do you see a little bit more in the Cavs were definitely losing in that trade?
Honestly, I'd go, he is a playmaker. He's a guy who's one of the best scorers that the league has had in the last 10 years. He's one of the most smooth scorers. He's one of the smoothest scorers to grab a basketball. I think that if we were being honest about it and you trade him for Kevin Love to Cleveland, he makes LeBron better because LeBron now has a legit wing scorer. J.R. Smith is streaky. The one thing about Melo is that you get Melo one bucket, Melo's hot. Melo is what, 6'8"? He's not afraid to take you down to the post and get you a bucket. But the thing about it is that there are times where, like Kevin Love, I feel as though Melo fades. When you need Melo in the fourth quarter, you can get Melo in the fourth quarter, but there are games where Melo in the fourth quarter is nowhere to be found because I feel as though that he believes that the management wants him to defer to Kristaps, or he wants to defer to D Rose or Courtney Lee. I feel as though that these guys are on his team right now. He's the man. Go out here and get your buckets, and in fact, raise your trade value.
Well, if we, if this is true, then Carmelo Anthony's been doing just that, and that's actually one of the biggest criticisms of not just Phil Jackson, but of fans of the Knicks alike. We can definitely get into some more commentary about that in a future Knicks post. But one of the biggest things that has been sort of a detriment to the team is that down the stretch, players like like Derrick Rose and Carmelo Anthony have somewhat have a vacuum in the fourth quarter, believing that they can take these back down shots and they can take these isolated shots instead of feeding into what I would like to say the process. Little Joel Embiid joke there.
Joel Embiid.
And somewhat deferring some of the scoring to the younger stars. Or some of the wing scores, as you would say, or maybe even Kristaps Porzingis himself, and what ends up happening is that they're losing these close games by an average margin of about 4 points, and so you start to wonder, are we really talking about Carmelo Anthony here, or is there someone else out there that the Cavs should trade for, and even more so, the Knicks? I mean, are the Knicks just stuck between a rock and a hard place now?
Well, I feel like they pulled a 2004 Los Angeles Lakers. They tried to put together a good team, and they tried. They tried, and there I just looked and I was just counting. I think they're 10th or 12th in the East, 20 and 27. I don't think that they're in a bad place. If you're going to move Melo for someone who you can bring back. He's going to make an impact on your team. I was thinking Blake Griffin, but I don't know. You might have to send Melo, to, because he has a no trade clause. He has to waive it. So, he kind of has your hand side. He's not, if you send him to Cleveland and you get back Kevin Love, how does that really work out for you? You don't put Kevin Love at the small forward position. You don't really have anybody that you can develop and get a small forward. But if you went off and let's say you got a guy like a Chandler Parsons, you need somebody who's going to get a couple buckets here and there. He can stretch the floor. He can take on some pressure off of LeBron. And the same thing with the Knicks. If you trade Melo, who are you going to have play with your young guy, Kristaps? You're going to need a legit guard, two guard or point guard to get him the ball and he can run with. Because if you don't, Kristaps is left to play until his contract is up. Then he moves on. You have no one.
Now, I think what you're looking at for the Cavs to do, what their plan should be, is a little bit opposite of what the plan that LeBron James needs. I can definitely understand there being some sort of release valve for having better support players, someone a little bit better than a Richard Jefferson down the stretch,
right?
Someone a little bit better than an Amon Shumpert down the stretch. But my gripe there is that if I am LeBron James, I'm looking to say I want Carmelo Anthony when he was in Denver.
True.
I want that type of player. And right now, to be completely honest, there are no closers that are willing to leave their teams right now. No closers whatsoever. No one that you can defer to down the stretch and say, go hit a clutch shot. Kyrie Irving does it, but he does it in big moments. What I think LeBron James is looking for is someone that can consistently close, like a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan. We're not going to get into that. But just to say that he's looking more for someone that can consistently be dependent on in the fourth quarter.
So why
Because
not go after a guy like a Jordan Clarkson? He's a young guy who can play both guard positions, and he can play alongside LeBron James and Kyrie in the fourth. He makes shots, he can handle the ball, and he's not afraid to go to the rim. You may not need a Carmelo Anthony, but you do need like you say, need another playmaker or scorer. Why not a Jordan Clarkson? You can send a draft pick their way. You can offer them something, or if not, a Lou Will.
Okay, so Jason, are you trying to sabotage my Lakers because you're a Thunder fan? I mean, I can understand the jealousy there. I mean, that's
not even close, man. Not even close. I'm just looking at it in a sense of if LeBron really wants help, I think that the opportunity is out there. You can't go Melo. If you want to keep a guy like Kevin Love, because Kevin Love will get them through to the Eastern Conference Finals, and he'll make shots to where they can beat a team like Toronto, because there's nothing standing in the way of them making the finals again. Honestly, there's no team standing in their way. They still, they've lost 3-4 games in a row, and they still have like a 3 to 5 game lead over the next division, their divisional opponent. That's
just to clarify, that's Cavs lost last 6 of 8. They are now and they still have a 3-game lead in their own division. I believe they are 4 games ahead in the East. Just to clarify that point. But yeah, I can definitely understand where it's a decent amount. But as LeBron said, they are not getting better. And now let's look at the flip side of this deal. So definitely Kevin Love's the Cavs know that they can get better.
True.
A better trade value for someone like Kevin Love. So let's talk about the Knicks. There was a poll that went out not too long ago by the put out by Lakers Nation, Sports Nation, where the poll was asked, now that the Lakers are in dire straits, what would you as a fan vote for the Lakers to do? And the 3 choices were this. Fight for the 8th seed in the playoffs, because definitely getting that playoff experience would help a young core.
True.
Continue to play the young core. Try to get a little bit of trade value out of them, maybe, or like maybe figure out, or just bottom out and try for one of the try to keep their pick protected for the lottery. And I'm asking the same thing for the Knicks. I mean, first of all, it's going to start with what would you do if you were the GM of the Knicks? What would you do with the Carmelo situation?
I trade him and I go get something for him. I go and honestly, if I really want to trade him, I convince him to go to a team like a Phoenix.
Now, see, there's a problem with that trade, because Carmelo Anthony has essentially a no trade clause,
basically,
where he can't be traded unless he decides that the team that he's being traded to he likes, and he also gets an added signing bonus with it. So there's that there. And so my question now is, with that in place, what teams do you think seem feasible that Carmelo Anthony would want to go to?
Well, if we're being reasonable, I can say out of the West, you can say the Clippers. It would be a far-fetched move, but you could say Oklahoma City. In the East, you could possibly say Washington. You can look at Boston. Like, there are teams out there that are really competitive and on the cusp of challenging, but they need a guy like Carmelo. The thing about it is, I think Carmelo has to see the potential in those teams. You got to be able to play with those guys. A guy like Isaiah Thomas in Boston, I'm pretty sure him and Carmelo will get along just fine. Or John Wall. John Wall scores, but John Wall is a pass-first guard. He's a great guard who doesn't get a lot of credit for how well he plays, but he's a pass-first guard.
But who would Washington give up? Washington would
Bradley
easily
Beal.
have to give up Bradley Beal, Marcin Gortat, and maybe some cash in order to get Carmelo Anthony over there.
I look at that one as I'd offer you Bradley Beal, possibly Otto Porter Jr., maybe Markieff Morris, Those two guys are interchangeable. Otto Porter and Markieff Morris, they're interchangeable, one or the other. I personally want to hold on to the younger guy, Otto Porter. So I'd give you Bradley Beal and I give you Markieff Morris. I can hold on to my big man, with Marcin Gortat. I got a point guard. I can plug in Otto Porter at that 2 guard spot. We become bigger and we can run a little bit more. The thing about it is that you got to give Melo the ball. You got to put him in position to get buckets and not settle for jump shots. So I definitely go there. You could even consider, this is like a stretch, but why not put him in possibly Charlotte? Charlotte has a couple picks they can offer you. They can offer you some cash. I'll send you Frank Kaminsky or Al Jefferson.
Well, my issue with that is that Charlotte, despite, making the playoffs last season, is a perpetual lottery team.
True.
There's no two ways about it. I mean, Kemba Walker has done all that he can do out in Charlotte, but that team, I mean, yeah, they sort of put it to the Warriors the other night, but that's a perpetual lottery team, and I'm sure that Carmelo Anthony has had enough of that playing in New York.
Of course.
I don't know, if I were Carmelo, Los Angeles would be the next best pick.
I mean, that's a good pick. You mean the Clippers?
Yes, it definitely would be the Clippers. The Clippers would automatically improve their scoring. They would lose rebounding, but they can defer to DeAndre Jordan for that. And Chris Paul has a surefire, not just someone that has to play back down to the basket like Blake Griffin does, but he has a surefire jump shooter in Carmelo Anthony. And then the Clippers can officially go all offense. Let's just depend on DeAndre Jordan for rebounds, blocks, whatever interior defense that we need, and become sort of like a Houston Rockets 2.0 when they had Dwight Howard, but way better defense. The problem with that is I don't see them keeping their veteran core on the Clippers.
True.
I don't see Paul Pierce wanting to going to New York and being so close to Boston and not being able to play back on that team.
Because this is his last year, he says.
I don't see Blake Griffin. I mean, Blake Griffin doesn't have a no trade clause, but I don't see Blake Griffin working well in New York. Period.
What about here's a team that I was looking at the standings. They're under 500 by 7 games, but I feel as though that they have the pieces to send back to New York to make it work. What about Portland?
Portland would probably be that was actually what I was thinking when you were referring to a team that could be the pieces earlier, could have the pieces earlier. Portland was one of those teams that was very close, a couple games out of the 8th spot.
Mm-hmm.
And would need to start winning games against better teams than the Los Angeles Lakers. It would work in theory, but
they're 9th right now in the West.
I think it's almost a guarantee for Portland to be in. It's more of how they get in. And it might come down to a tiebreaker for them. Just to get past that tiebreaker, getting Carmelo Anthony may be a good thing for them. I'm just not sure you want to break up that young core just yet. They've already done it once, and it looks like they're starting to gel a little bit better.
I mean, it's one of those situations where I feel like I'm
sort of hesitant.
New York was going to probably want CJ McCollum. But
period.
If you can make a trade for Melo and you can keep CJ McCollum, but you get rid of Al Farouk, you get rid of Mo Harkless, you can get rid of Leonard or Plumlee.
Now you're just dumping picks, and I'm not sure that unless Portland had a protected top 7 pick in next year's draft, there is absolutely no way that I'm simply getting players dumped upon me with whatever Portland would have to pay out, be responsible for the remainder of these players' salaries if they get cut. They would also have to throw in a bonus for Carmelo Anthony plus picks. So Portland would have to be out a pick and money over the course of 2 seasons. So as long as no one needs to get paid, a new contract needs to be signed for a key player like McCollum or Lillard. That's the only way that I would pull the trigger, because you're almost drinking poison here when you're taking a trade for Carmelo Anthony, because he comes with a high cap on his contract. He comes with the possible drama that he brings to the team. He comes with a stopgap, not a stopgap. He comes as a stoppage in a possible flow of a decent offense. I mean, most of it goes through McCollum and Lillard anyway, with their high-powered pass maybe once, pick and roll and jump shot offense. The only question would be, can Carmelo run with these guys? Because the team, I think, is an average of about 28, 29. Carmelo's going on 33.
Yeah.
And the Knicks, they try to run, but they don't do it successfully. The question is, can Carmelo run with that offense? So there's a lot of check marks in order to go to a team like Portland. The problem was with Cleveland, there were 2 check marks that needed to happen. Do we have the money?
Mm-hmm.
And do we have the spot on the floor? And the question to both was yes, they had the money. They didn't have the picks because they traded away all their picks for the next few years, at least in the top 10. The Knicks are always asking too much because they feel like, hey, we want you to pay for our grief because dumbass Dolan decided that, hey, you know what, I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket and let's go ahead and give it to Carmelo Anthony. And with the problem with both of those things is that, you know, it's come back to bite them in the butt, and then they want other teams to pay for it. But you check off less boxes with Cleveland. You check off just as many boxes with Los Angeles Clippers. The only difference is that they're already lacking in the defense department as it is.
Right.
So do you take that chance and give up Blake Griffin, who on a decent night has pretty good defense? He's not a shutdown type of player. He's definitely more of an offensive player. But do you take that chance and just and assume it's a 1-for-1? Because yeah, you get better shooting with Carmelo, but do you get better interior scoring, which is another thing that the Clippers kind of thrive off of to free up their wing scores like JJ Redick? I don't think that the Knicks are getting out of this one.
I think that I kind of agree, actually. I feel like they're going to literally be stuck with Carmelo until the contract is up, and then he's going to walk. But Carmelo could have done this the last time he signed that max deal. Why sign with New York when you really don't see potential? Just because Phil Jackson isn't playing, he isn't coaching. This is his first time as a GM. I would have been very leery of signing a 4-year, 5-year contract. I would have signed maybe 2 years with a player option where I can go somewhere. Melo has had, since he's been a Knick, how many knee surgeries has he had? I think 2.
Yeah.
I feel like that there kind of leaves him like, you know, it's in a sense, it's almost buyer beware. Yeah, he could come to the Clippers for a 1-for-1 for Blake. But in that same sense, you know, will Chris Paul come back? Because Chris Paul I think this is Chris Paul's walk year. So then he'll be stuck with Raymond Felton and DeAndre Jordan, Brandon Bass, and whomever else. You know what I mean? Yeah, now you're basically the Knicks West. So, you know, do you really want that all over again for yourself when you're trying to win a championship? I feel like he might be stuck in New York. He may have to do the best he can. Go talk to Phil. Him and Phil patch things up. You got to get another score there. You got to get another guy who can get buckets. And right now, they're not taking advantage of And the thing about it is that he may have to stay in. He can stay in LA, but what if they move a Courtney Lee and a Brandon Jennings, or they move a Derrick Rose? Because right now, it doesn't seem like these guys are getting it done together. You know, they're not making anything happen right now, and that part right there isn't, you know, that's not conducive to his, you know, to his career.
So
You want to
ultimately,
win, you got to go somewhere good.
so ultimately, what we're saying is that it's if teams are being smart, then it's going to continuously be a lose-lose situation for the Knicks, which, you know, I think that if they were actually looking at it, and this is nothing against Carmelo Anthony, the player, because again, he's a great player, but right
True.
now, I think it's sort of, you're stuck in like a Joe Johnson closet, like the Brooklyn Nets. There's nothing you could do but dump him, and it might be the best thing for you going forward. We're going to leave it at that for now. We kind of alluded to this earlier. Let's talk about the Eastern Conference, and primarily the defending champions, the Cleveland Cavaliers, who has recently lost the last 6 of 8. GM LeBron came out saying that they need more help. And they're losing to teams like the Sacramento Kings. I mean, it's the Sacramento Kings. Or as my favorite player, Shaq Diesel, likes to say, the Sacramento Queens. That team, I mean, if you were trying to think of any team that could beat Cleveland, first of all, did you think it was Sacramento?
The Kings, they showed heart last night. I mean, you can. The one thing I look at is a guy like DeMarcus Cousins. He's literally one of my favorite players to watch play because he just gets buckets. I don't care about the attitude. I don't care about, you know, anything else, his discontent. I don't care how much he hates the other team's commentators. DeMarcus Cousins gets buckets. And I personally feel as though he's the best power forward in the league. You know, people call him a center. I think he's playing out of position. I think he's the best power forward in the league. The Cavs have kind of gotten stale. They've kind of gotten stagnant. What do you call it? Korver. They traded for Korver. They traded Dunleavy for Korver. And I mean, is it really working out? I don't think when J.R. Smith comes back, it's going to make too much difference. They're not really playing enough defense.
Well, do you think that's due to I mean, there's been talk. I mean, if you look at the schedule that the Cavs have had, and had a real truncated set of road games, and there's been talk of there's been lack of practice because of the road games for these teams. Do you think that maybe it's just waiting for things to gel?
I will say that no, this is a championship team. They basically have the same exact team from last season. These guys aren't ready to. These guys aren't trying to gel, or you know, you're not waiting for them to gel. I think they've gotten complacent. I think they've gotten championship complacent. Everybody's back. Iman is there. Trishan is there. You know, JR. He's not playing right now, but he's still there. Channing is there. Kyrie. Chris Birdman is not playing. You know, Richard Jefferson is playing. You know, these guys are still there. They're just not giving the effort that LeBron is expecting of them. LeBron is yelling at them like he used to yell at Mario Chalmers. Or he's yelling through the media at them like he used to do Mario Chalmers face to face.
So if you look at let's go over the last 10, we'll say 14 games. Okay. So out of the last 14 games, we're looking at let's call it 6 wins.
Okay.
We'll call it 6 wins. Quality wins. Celtics
1
by 6. That's it.
That's all.
1 quality win, because you have a win. You have a win by 12 over the Hornets, a win by 8 over the Pelicans.
Then they lost to the Bulls.
And then they lost to the Bulls. A win by 8 over the Nets. A win by 4 over the Suns. Okay. And then before they went back and you know lost against the Kings, they beat the Kings by 12.
Right.
At Sacramento.
They lost to
Um,
Golden State. Then they beat Phoenix. Then they lost to the double. They lost an overtime game to San Antonio. They look. I won't say they look stale in a sense. They look a little bit lethargic. Only person like what they lost Monday to the Pelicans. Kyrie had 49. You know, you have to. I'm not saying that he has to be their guy, but I feel as though that you can't lose to the Pelicans. I don't care if it's about two or not. You can't lose to the Kings.
you
You
can't
can't
lose
let
to
that game
them.
go into overtime against the Kings last night.
No, there are a few teams where the Kings have won against opposing teams in overtime. We'll probably pull up that stat in a moment, but nonetheless, I mean, you say that they've gotten stagnant. Do you see something in their offense, or maybe even for a lack of word, their defense? Do you see something in there that needs to improve? Because I mean, LeBron James is saying they that they need a playmaker.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the other side of the ball? No one said anything about how bad the defense has been. I mean, just a season ago, teams were averaging somewhat in the realm of 93 points. 93 points is actually pretty decent for the league. You hold a team to an average of under 95 points, it's awesome. Now, they're 17th in the league, allowing 105 points a game. Where has the defense gone?
Well, Kevin Love isn't a defender. He's not a defender at the power forward spot. Tristan Thompson, he's an okay defender, but your anchor is LeBron. No one else on that team is a stopper other than LeBron. You don't have a stopper in the post. You don't have a stopper at the wing other than LeBron. So they're not, and I'm pretty sure they're not talking as much. They're not, going to the boards as they should, as often as they should. I feel like these are situations where, they lost to Indiana 103-93, where Kevin Love was their leader 27. But if I'm not mistaken, I'm looking the stats up now. Paul George, he went off. Paul George went off. And those are situations where I feel like, you have to get your guys into the flow of the game. Because if you don't, what's going to happen is these teams get on they get on the rhythm, and you get a guy like Paul George who all he had was 21 that night. He was their guy with 21, 20 from Teague, 16 from Thad Young, and 12 from Miles Turner. So look at where we talk about that at. They got beat up pretty bad up front. Thad Young and Miles Turner combined for 28 points and 15 boards. You get beat up. The thing about it is that only person that's out there rebounding on the boards is Tristan Thompson. Kevin Love is kind of regressed. So if you get beat up on the boards and you're allowing second chance points, you're gonna lose.
So, stupid question. Are we really talking about the presence that Timothy Mozgov had with the Cavs and how his lack of a presence now is the difference maker in between now what I'm looking at? I got an update here. 98.3 from 2015, 2016 to 105.1 this season.
He could be the reason.
So
I mean, he could be the interior presence. It's needed.
If you're GM, if you're like the actual GM and you're talking to LeBron James, what are you telling LeBron after a moment where he says, we need to get a playmaker, I'm not happy with how our players are being paid, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, we signed you to a big deal. Did you take a pay cut to give us a little bit of wiggle room to come get a guy? Then you wanted us to get a deal done with JR. So we got a deal done with JR. And JR hasn't played in a while. So the guy we're paying, he's on the bench in street clothes. I understand that you want a guy. I understand that we're getting beat down in the post on the defensive end, but where do we turn? All of our guys are older. No one's going to want to give us a younger guy for one of our older guys. Just because they're paying dividends for you don't mean they're going to be able to pay dividends for us in our system. A team like San Antonio with the guy Dedman, they're making Dedman look great. And, you know, he probably wouldn't play 2 minutes in any other team, but San Antonio is making him work. I think that it's something where I've been saying this for a while, and they've been making me look silly about it. And maybe this year, maybe the year where it comes to fruition. The Cavs are old. The Cavs have been old. LeBron came back. The Cavs got older. Yeah, those guys are a lot. They're very savvy. They're very they're veteran laden, but they're older. What are you going to do? How can you make that work for you? You can't.
Well, I'm looking at a possible move by the Cleveland Cavaliers, but I see them changing a little bit of their front court offense and possibly trading for some interior defense. I'm looking somewhere like a 3-team trade, possibly bringing over someone like a Kelly Olynyk.
Really?
Yes.
I don't think he really helps though. All he does is provide us what? Outside shooter.
He has an interior presence which hasn't been utilized as much because of the system that Brad Stevens has set up over in Boston. But what I'm alluding to is that I really think that Cleveland has a stronger chance of success. If I were GM, and I would sit there and I would look LeBron dead in the face and say, "You are wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You are wrong on so many levels, and this is why you are playing. You are not coaching, and you do not own this team." And I want to let you know that if you ever come out and you're not committed to both sides of the ball again, you don't have the rest of the guys committed to both sides of the ball again, and you say something like that, trust me, we will be renegotiating your contract quicker than you can say king. And then I'd show them the door.
That right there, they're already reporting that there's strains in the relationship between he and Dan Gilbert. You don't really want to. You don't really want to. Make that worse than what it is. But why not? And this is a stretch here. They have a plethora of them. Why not go after a big man from Orlando, possibly a Bismack? He is the least talented of the three, Vucevic, Serge, and himself. Why not go after a guy like that who is a little look at what he did to them in the playoffs last year. He provides toughness. He'll provide a little bit of rebounding. He'll challenge the ball. He'll challenge the shot. You just need him for quick spurts here and there. You don't need someone who's going to, take or demand 6 or 7 shots. You want someone who you can catch in the flow of the offense, who will catch you a couple dunks, a couple lobs. He'll bring in a little bit of energy, and you can put him back on the bench where you found him at when you guys get to a comfortable lead.
I just highly doubt that LeBron is in a negotiating mood right now. I strongly believe that he is looking to try and Shanghai this team and make it his own.
A quick fix.
And in a sense, this is why I say that LeBron James, this is why I've been telling people LeBron James is following Kobe. Kobe did the same thing with the Lakers. And if you guys don't believe it, ask Shaq. Speaking of Lakers, we're going to move on real quick here. We're going to go ahead and move on to this next topic. And this was really important. We've been throwing around GM, we've thrown around the Lakers, we've thrown around a few teams. Let's talk about one of the teams. Let's talk about 4 teams right now that have no shot of making the playoffs, but seem to be in great markets and have great opportunities to try to improve their team overall for seasons to come. Talking about the Dallas Mavericks, talking about Brooklyn Nets, Miami Heat, my personal favorite, West Coast bottom dwellers, Los Angeles Lakers. Jason, let me ask you, you got about, $3 billion to buy a team. But let's not talk about ownership. Let's just talk about your personal friends with the owners of each of these four teams. Who do you go to and say, hey, I want to be the GM of your team?
I'd go to one of two. I'd go to Mickey Arison and want the Miami job, or I'd go or where I currently live at now. I'd go to the Bus family, and I'd say I want Mitch Kupchak's job because A, it's fun and fun all the time, and B, you can entice players to come to that same fun and fun.
What would you what is so you're now GM of, let's say, Miami. What is your first major move? And I feel like you're just been nominated as president.
Amazing.
What is your first action in office as GM of the Miami Heat?
Find out if Chris Bosh can actually play. Find out if Chris Bosh can actually play, because if Chris Bosh can play, we need him on the court.
Hasn't that been the question mark this entire season, is Chris Bosh's health? Definitely hoping that he's doing a lot better with the whole blood clot thing.
Definitely.
But are we talking? Do you mention that because do you think it's like a salary cap issue? Do you believe that maybe he's playing possum, or do you think that he's the answer for their success?
Chris Bosh strikes me as a guy who's going to play regardless of where he's at and how he's doing. If you have Chris Bosh on the floor this season, that team would have more than 9 wins. I'll tell you that much. They could possibly be fighting for an 8th seed. Him and Hassan Whiteside found out. I mean, this is just a small tidbit. I found out Hassan Whiteside was possibly going to sign with Portland, and then he didn't. I bet he wished he signed with Portland now. But I'd find out, that if Chris Bosh wants to play or not. Because if he doesn't want to play, then we may look to dump him and let him move on with his career. Because it seems like management is afraid to let him play, but he wants to play, and I feel like it's one of those situations where he is going to do anything he can to get back on the floor. I don't think he's going to put his life in danger. I feel like he just wants to play, and they're not giving him the opportunity to.
Well, who wouldn't put their life in danger? I would not put my best asset on the floor unless I was 120% sure that we would not be seeing any repercussions from allowing him back onto the floor. Point blank, period. I am a player's coach, GM. I'm all for the players. If it looks like any part of your health is in jeopardy, if it looks like we may suffer as a team because I decided to be selfish and say, let's go get him back out there on the floor so we can get some wins. No way, no how, no sirree. I will definitely say, Chris, it's nice weather out there. We got some great doctors. Just make sure you check into your weekly appointments. Checking with us on the regular, stepping in on team practices, show us your leadership capabilities off the floor, guide some of these young picks that we're going to be bringing in the next couple of seasons, but stay home. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see pictures of you in the clubs with your girl. I don't want to see you wilding out on a boat with your shirt off like some other unmentioned athletes. I don't want to see you sitting there trying to drive a hole-in-one on Pebble Beach in Daytona. I don't want to see you racing down the street in a car. I want to see you when you tweet or Snapchat chilling at home. That's all I want to see out of you, because you are essentially the cornerstone of our future, one way or another. Because in the end, I'm thinking about insurance clauses.
True.
What the team would have to give up should, knock on wood, hoping this never happens, Chris Bosh passes on the floor due to increased blood clots and him just essentially dying. I mean, we don't want that to happen because of selfish move. It's like, hey, we can't come out there and say, hey, he knew the risk. Well, I knew the risk. And so there's no real way to justify that if the worst case scenario happens.
You're saving the player from himself, basically.
Saving him from himself, and I'm saving us from him as well. Because if you, some players get punch drunk. Kobe, at some point after that Achilles, after the first platelet-rich, procedure that he did in Germany for his legs, when he was having injuries around his knees, that's when you started to see what I like to call punch drunk boxer, but in a basketball form, where he got injured so heavily to where he didn't realize himself until it was almost too late that it was time to hang it up. He even said it himself. His mind was saying, let's go. His body was saying, dude, you need to stop now. And if his body didn't just naturally fall apart into pieces like Frankenstein was missing his bolts on the floor, he would have continued to try to play. And I think Chris Bosh, he may not show it. A lot of players think it. They know how good they can be. The problem is, like all of us, when we get into our age and we're not the spring chickens that we are anymore, we think that there are things that we can do. The problem is there are clear and present signs that are telling us not to do it. Do not go out and play basketball right now. That you have not been given the green light.
I feel like with Chris Bosh, he's been dealing with this for two straight seasons where it's ended his season right before the playoffs. And I'm pretty sure as of right now, he's probably anxious to get back on the floor. He wants to get back out on the floor. In a sense, I'm pretty sure he needs to get back on the floor. You know, it is for his sanity. He's a competitor. And I guess that's why I say as the GM of that team, if I were the GM, I would find out how he's doing. And I'd find out, what can we do to better put you in position to get back, to make a return? Because if we can't put you in a better position to make a return, then if you're looking at it from a standpoint of us making money, we're losing money right now. We're paying you to sit around when we could possibly use that money to go get somebody. We can go use that. We can let you walk. It's been nice. Thank you for the 2 championships. We love you. You're forever in our hearts. But we kind of need to move on and find someone who can basically help better this squad. Because watching Dion Waiters hit a pull-up 3 at the end of the game over Klay Thompson, I just can't watch that anymore. We need to go get another guard who can do something other than pose in the middle of the Heat court screaming, "This is my team." It's one of those situations where I understand that we have to save him from himself, but I also look at it as though if he's really ready to go and he has doctors willing to clear him, and Riley's being a dick, then yeah, you got. I mean, there's a reason why Wade is no longer there. There's a reason why LeBron is no longer there. It kind of gives me feeling that Riley isn't being as genuine as we want him to be right now. We kind of want this guy to, let him play.
I'm wondering, after you assess that situation with Bosh, what's your next step?
The next step would be to try to figure out how I can find a guard to pair with my center Hassan Whiteside. How can I get the most out of him? How can I? Because right now, I would probably look to trade Goran Dragic. And if I want to trade Goran Dragic, who I would target? I'd target Reggie Jackson in Detroit.
Whoa! So you'd send it. Okay, so why would you trade for Reggie Jackson? I mean, that would be the 3rd team that he's been on when you include the Thunder. Do you think that he's sort of like a James Harden, just another guard that has kind of sat behind a very deep bench and now he's just getting his wings, and that he's capable of leading a team like Miami Heat out of the gutter?
I go for Reggie Jackson because I see potential in Reggie Jackson. The year that Westbrook went out and was hurt, better yet, the year Durant won MVP, 2014. Reggie Jackson was their guy. Reggie Jackson got the team into sets. He got Durant the ball where he needed it at, and he got to the lane. He's fearless at the rim. He's no Westbrook at the rim, but he's fearless. And when you're fearless, like, you know, a guy like that, when you can finish with either hand, when you got a nice little floater, you go well with guys like Deion Waiters, Justice Winslow, Hassan Whiteside, James Johnson. You go well with those kind of guys because you're going to find them, you're going to get them into the sets that they need to be into. And when it comes down to it, when my big man can't get a shot, I can always rely on good old Reggie Jackson to get me a bucket. So that's why I said I would target a guy like Reggie Jackson, because he's going to lead us. He's going to be fearless, and he'll bring a little bit more recognition back to the team.
And you mentioned this earlier, and of course we haven't mentioned anything about the other two teams in Dallas or Brooklyn.
Sorry, guys.
I'm not sure that anyone will
I
want
don't
to
know
go
who
there
plays
right
for Brooklyn
now.
outside of Lopez.
But let's talk about the other beach, the other end of the states. Los Angeles Lakers. You got a very young core there. Essentially what they call the young four. People are referring to them as the baby Lakers. I am not one of those people, for reasons that I will not get into. But you have a very young core. You have the resurgence of Nick Young. And you have, let's call him a young five, because let's throw Larry Nance Jr. in there.
Definitely.
And I believe it's Ivan Zubic, who is looking like he could be a fit somewhere, but hasn't really gotten into a rhythm of playing time. So you really have 6 key young players, a resurgence of a veteran Nick Young, and let's not forget who's a leading scorer on that team right now, Lou Williams, who's formerly six man in the year, was playing over in Toronto. What do you make of this team? And you get Mitch Kupchak's position. What is your first plan of action this far into the season?
Well, if we're going that far with it, I may consider starting Brandon Ingram. I like Brandon Ingram's game. People are calling him a poor man's Durant. Well, if he's going to be a poor man's Durant, he's a really, really, really poor man's Durant. I mean, like 10 years in student loan debt, poor man's Durant. You know, they're basically docking his paycheck because he owes back child support, poor man's Durant. I mean, it's one of them things where he can get you buckets, and he's kind of fearless. He's fearless on the boards, but if I'm Mitch Kupchak, I kind of want to see what we got out of our guy here. You know, we aren't going to make the playoffs. We're second to last in the Western Conference, and I think that it's kind of time that we begin to look. We're not even second to last. We're last, 16-33. I kind of say, hey, you know what? Luke, you're doing a great job. We love what you're doing. You have my support. You have the support of the owners. But we kind of want to see what we got with our core four. We kind of want to see how well we can work Julius and Russell and, you know, Ingram and Clarkson together. Let Lou Aldang and them come. Let Nick Young and Lou come off the bench. We kind of want to see how these guys work together. We kind of want to see who the alpha male will be, because in the long and the short, you need somebody. You need to know what you have in these guys. You know, we were talking about 2 years ago. Oh, Jordan Clarkson's going to be great. Jordan Clarkson's going to be great. He came in last year and they had Russell, and he kind of regressed a little bit. Now he's coming off the bench this year. Not doing too bad, but, you know, he's coming off the bench. You kind of let Nick Young take his shine. And I feel like we were talking about 2-3 years ago that Jordan Clarkson was going to be the next Russell Westbrook. But he's now sitting on the bench waiting for his turn to get in. So I go and I move these young guys to the front to the front of the line, and I'd say, guys, let's see what we can do. We still got a lot of season to play for. We still got pride. Let's go out here and show our fans that we're worth paying, $800 for a ticket to come see every night.
On the flip side, the signings of Luol Deng and Timothy Mozgov, two guys who have, I wouldn't say have performed poorly, but have not performed up to the contracts that they have been given.
True.
Deng mostly because of injuries. Mozgov mostly because, well, he just hasn't really fit as well as expected.
Anything is better than Roy Hibbert. I'm just gonna say that. Anything is like, I can honestly say that if you and I got a trench coat and stood on each other's shoulders, we could be better than Hibbert. Like, honestly. So I'm not gonna go ahead and bash Mozgov because this is a young. I mean, the one thing I realized, I want to know what some of these agents are saying to some of these players. Hey, Mozgov, you want to play for the Lakers? Sure. Here's a boatload of money. Oh, by the way, this team is young and they're going to run the floor a lot. Can you handle that? Well, I'm 7'1". I don't really know. Good. Sign here. I mean, because he looks like he can't keep up with that team. And if he can't keep up with the team, I don't think that they are doing enough to help him, and to ingratiate him into their offense. Because if you look at it, Luke Walton is trying to play that Golden State offense. He wants to jack up threes. He wants to move the rock around. And by the time you finally get Mozgov into the post, we got 7 seconds on the clock, maybe even less. Does he get up a quality shot? Is he able to get a rhythm? No, because if you're not doing that, if he doesn't watch out, he's going to get dunked on by Julius Randle. So, it's one of them things where I feel like Mozgov might have been a bad signing for them. And if I'm Kupchak, I'd go, you know what, we might. I mean, I don't know who wants Mozgov right now, but we should look into getting rid of him and going a little bit smaller.
That's interesting that you mentioned getting rid of Mozgov, because his contract currently would only allow a few teams to take him. If the Lakers had the luck of the Irish, not to point towards any teams or anything, but if the Lakers had a little bit of luck on their side and some ingenuity, do you believe that they could package Mozgov and trade for someone like Joel Embiid?
Nope. I'm a Philadelphia native, and I have been following the Sixers for maybe the past 4 or 5. I'm going to say since the season started. Joel Embiid is untouchable. And they want Joel Embiid to lead them back to the Iverson days, back to the 01-2000 days. You can't touch Joel Embiid. You can't touch Joel Embiid like you couldn't touch Donovan McNabb in that city, or Iverson. Those guys he's untradeable.
If you had a choice then of one of these 3 options, packaging 2 of the young 4, that's Julius Randle, Jordan Clarkson, Russell, and Brandon Ingram, you had the opportunity to trade 2 of the 4 for a center, or trading Mozgov and Deng for another center, plus giving away the next 2 years of top 10 picks, or sending Nick Young and Brandon Ingram off to a playoff contender for picks and money. Pick and why?
I go to the second pick and I get rid of Mozgov, and I get rid of Mozgov and Luol Deng, and I would probably send them to a team like Phoenix, where I can possibly get back a Ty Warren, a guy who can get buckets. He's a mid-range king. He knows his range, because in the sense of it, You can use a guy off the bench. You can score. A Wesley Johnson type of guy off the bench. I understand that Luol Deng has been injured or whatever, but I need someone who's going to be able to give me a little defense off the bench. Granted, Mozgov he just hasn't fit. He hasn't quite fit. I don't want to get rid of that core four here in LA. I feel like that can be something special. Those guys can be very special. And if I were to get rid of one of the core four, I'd say goodbye to Clarkson in a heartbeat, because I'm going to go look to get a guy who's a little bit bigger at the two guard position. If we're going to believe in Russell, I'm going to go get me a bigger two guard. And Ty Warren from Phoenix might be that guy, or I may look a little bit deeper into it, and because I feel like the Sixers aren't going to give up a guy like an Embiid. But if you want, you can probably get Nerlens Noel, or you can go get Jahlil Okafor, like you should have drafted the year you got drafted Russell. Jahlil Okafor is definitely available. He's a post presence, and you can put him right beside Julius Randle. He ain't gonna play much defense, but he will get you about 19 and 8. So maybe you could send him back to Philly. Maybe you could send Luol Deng and Timothy Mozgov to Philly, but they got to report in order for him to play. And both of those guys are still on brand new contracts. They're not going to want to play for the Sixers. And it's weird because Okafor all he wants is some time. He wants to get some PT, and him and Embiid don't play well together. So I would go get him. I go get rid of my big man Mozgov, and I would bring back a little more skilled big man than Okafor, and I might even ask them for some cash consideration, because they're definitely gonna ask you to pay most of the salaries of Mozgov and Luol Deng. So it maybe you might be right with Philly, just wrong with the players.
Mm. Well, we're gonna have to see. We have the All-Star break coming up in a couple of weeks. Definitely gonna see if there are going to be some trades happening before the deadline. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. We're going to go ahead and cut that there, and we'll be tuning in with you guys next week. Jason, appreciate you coming on the show.
Definitely.
And that's all that we have for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. This is JT, a.k.a. Apollo, a.k.a. your boy next door, a.k.a. Mr. a.k.a. signing off.